Good morning. It's June 12th. This is To My Liberal Friends. Well, the Trump administration has actively begun enforcing immigration law, and if you're in the country illegally, you're at risk of being detained and ultimately deported. Of course, this has brought out the demonstrators in Los Angeles and other cities around the country, and some of these demonstrations have turned violent. Now, if you listen to the mainstream media, this is just a peaceful group of people carrying signs and chanting slogans. The key word in all their reporting is peaceful. And just as they said any reference to Joe Biden's cognitive decline as being fake, they want you to believe that any video you see with your own eyes of violence, well, that's probably got to be fake as well. This all started when ICE began getting warrants for illegal immigrants who've been charged with other crimes. Some of these are hardened criminals with some very serious crimes, and it's led to groups organizing these protests. The legacy media insists the protests are minor, and the National Guard's deployment is unnecessary. I'm not sure whether it's true or not. The New York Times complains of the false impression that the entire city was engulfed in violence when the clashes were limited to only a small part, end quote. Well, it's true and not true. Los Angeles is a huge city area-wise. It has 4 million people, and it stretches over about 500 square miles. So they're correct when they say the entire city is not engulfed in these protests, but that does not diminish what is happening and what damage can be done during these protests/riots. On Sunday, the third night of the riots, Los Angeles Police Chief James McDonnell, who presumably in a position to know, said this, quote, "The violence I've seen is disgusting. It has escalated now since the beginning of this incident. What we saw the first night was bad, but what we're seeing on subsequent nights has been increasingly worse and more violent. Tonight, we had individuals out there shooting commercial-grade fireworks for officers, fireworks that can kill you. We've adapted our tactics to be able to take these people into custody and hold them accountable. We're overwhelmed as far as the number of people engaging in this type of activity. There is no limit to what they're doing to officers," end quote. But still the mavens at CNN, MSNBC, and the other news organizations try to play it down as a minor thing. But an independent reporter from the Free Press, an organization known for playing it straight, had this to say, quote, "Sunday afternoon, tens of thousands of protesters occupied about 8 square blocks above the closed 101 freeway, that's one that runs right through downtown, it's a crucial highway. Helicopters soared overhead. A Waymo and a line of Waymo taxis was engulfed in a bonfire fire-sized flames, a massive plume of black smoke clogging the sky above it. The others were smashed and covered in graffiti. Within an hour, they would all be on fire," end quote. Now, does that sound like a peaceful protest? These are first-hand accounts that are not filtered through some left-leaning editor in a newsroom. We have one protester here illegally, now charged with attempted murder as he threw a Molotov cocktail at police. And we've seen these protests spill over into areas like Compton, where looters entirely unrelated to the immigration protests have used this crisis as an excuse and cover to ransack businesses. Now, these protesters are playing right into Donald Trump's hand. When the public sees the violence, the police vehicles being damaged, and people waving Mexican and other national flags, it only serves to tell the public they're not interested in being Americans, but rather bringing their nation to ours. But when you look at who's being arrested, you have to wonder how Democrats and the media can defend them in any way. Without naming names here, which Homeland Security has done, here are some of the crimes they've committed. An immigrant from Ecuador who had been imprisoned for drug offenses. He was convicted of intent to distribute 5 kilos of cocaine. Another one was a member of Brot's 13, a gang in LA, who'd been found guilty of sexual battery as well as receiving stolen property and theft. Another immigrant from Mexico has a criminal history in Pasadena. He was previously sentenced to 112 days in jail for possessing unlawful paraphernalia, 16 months for possessing controlled substances, 4 years for assault with a deadly weapon, and 364 days for obstructing a public officer. Wow, that's a pretty good rap sheet. Another from Mexico had a criminal history that includes assault with a deadly weapon and great bodily injury in LA. He was sentenced to a year in jail for the crime. One from Peru has crimes that include robbery that resulted in a 10-year sentence. A man from Indonesia with a criminal history that includes convictions for narcotics, DUI, and illegal entry. One from Honduras who'd been arrested for domestic violence and heroin and cocaine distribution. And one immigrant from Vietnam had a criminal conviction of second-degree murder. Now, this list could go on and be very lengthy, but how many people would want these criminals living in their neighborhood? I don't think I would. I'll admit, we need to reform our immigration laws, and tomorrow I'm going to give an outline of what I think would be start of an equitable immigration reform package. Stay tuned.